Hello and welcome to Ramble Electric, and in this video I'm going to be talking about social media and my kind of weird relationship with it. Now you might think that's a bit not related to EVs and renewables and stuff, which is what I quite often talk about these days, but trust me, there is a link, but much of the conversation is going to be about just social media in general. So I'm out for a little drive in my electric car, and I do quite like my electric car, and that has got me into trouble on social media on quite a few occasions, if the truth be known. So just bear with me, this is a dodgy junction this, and oh hello, I can go. Whee! They should put a mini roundabout in there, they really should. So, okay, let's talk about social media, shall we? And my kind of weird love-hate relationship with it. My first social media platform that I joined would have been Twitter back in, I think it was January 2009, and after that a friend persuaded me to join Facebook, and then I think it was probably quite some time after that actually Instagram, and then much more recently found myself on Mastodon and Blue Sky and Threads, and I've even dabbled with social media that you might not have even heard of, such as Tribel and Hive. So you know there are actually a lot of platforms out there. You'll notice I didn't mention TikTok. I do have a TikTok account, but this is called the Rambly channel. I tend to ramble, and so TikTok is probably not the platform for me. I've always kind of had this weird thing about social media. I've sort of thought that in some ways it's a bit odd. It's a bit like standing on a street corner with a megaphone and shouting, "Look at me, look at me!" But yeah, perhaps I'm being a little unkind, but I do often think that when I used to go out, say in the 80s and the 90s, so I'd go out for a meal with some friends, I wouldn't feel the need to take a camera with me, photograph the friends and the meal, and then when I get home, print the photo out and then post it to all the other people that I've ever met. Why would you do that? And that's sort of what social media is all about. It's sort of a platform where you go on there and you just post a lot of nonsense most of the time. And the trouble is that a lot of people do post some really good stuff. I've got some friends at the moment who are out and about doing a tour in a camper van around, I think they're in Scandinavia at the moment. Now that's quite interesting because it's a bit different, isn't it, going there and doing something like that. So that's great. You know, who wouldn't want to post that trip and information about it? That's great. But, you know, people seem to want to post, I don't know, that they bought a new pair of shoes, or that they're, that they've just met somebody and gone out somewhere and done something pretty ordinary. And perhaps I'm being unkind, I don't know. But it just seems weird to me that it's just full of photographs of people's cornflakes and things. And who cares? But more than that, I think that I've sort of had this weird relationship with social media. Particularly, I can remember when Facebook introduced the concept of liking stuff. Now, it's difficult to think now that Facebook didn't have the concept of liking things back in the day. They didn't for years. And then they sort of introduced this thing, oh, you can like things. And I thought at the time, why are they doing that? Because as a consumer, as somebody who's using the product, what do you get out of that? They really gave a heavy marketing push on this whole like thing, and they said, I can't remember exactly how they framed it now, but it was on the lines of show brands and companies that you really love their services and you think they're great by liking them. And I did think at the time that's a bit odd, because what are you as a user, what are you actually getting out of that? And the answer is nothing. You're not getting anything out of that at all. But I did think to myself at the time, and this is going back, goodness, well over a decade, is, well, what are Facebook getting out of this? And I did think at the time, well, quite a lot, because they already know an awful lot about you, all the information that you've put in about your personal information that they ask you for. And now you're telling them the companies that you like, which means, of course, that they can then use that for advertising purposes. And even if you don't give them that information, you will be linking, liking, following people on the platform who will probably have very similar tastes to you, so they can work it out anyway. And I did think that it was a bit if they'd said, well, actually, the reason that we're doing this is so that we can flog advertising, I probably would have had, well, okay, I'm getting the platform for free, so, well, fair enough. But they weren't doing that. They were kind of covering it up. And I found that a bit shady, really. That's a bit weird. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I did think, why are you doing that? So I left it. I left Facebook, and I haven't been on it for, say, donkeys. Well over a decade now. I haven't been on Facebook because they kind of upset me, and I just couldn't be bothered to go back, really. So that's sort of what happened there. Twitter, in the meantime, I carried on using, and I joined Instagram as well, and was using those. And I just sort of generally carried on. But I followed a similar thing on there where I don't follow brands. I don't, because why should I give them that information, frankly? I follow real people is what I try and do. And things are kind of really carried on pretty much unchanged in the sort of 10 years since I really left Facebook. Nothing much has happened. Probably the big difference, the big thing that changed was when a certain Elon Musk bought Twitter, and things then went a bit weird after that, in case you hadn't noticed. And I'm not going to sort of stand here and moan about Elon Musk, because what's the point in doing that? I must say, a quick aside here, if you are interested at all, whether you like him or loathe him, in Elon Musk, because he's a fascinating character in many respects, the biography of him by Walter Isaacson is well worth a read, because it kind of gives a bit of context to why Musk is behaving in the way that he is towards Twitter, or X as he is now calling it. And actually it does explain why he renamed it X. It becomes fairly obvious when you read that biography, and you can kind of see why he's doing what he's doing, even if you don't necessarily, as I don't, agree with it. So anyway, so Twitter's got a bit weird. I have to say, I haven't really had any problems on Twitter. Some people call it a cesspit of hate, but I've had pretty positive experiences on there, and I've met a lot of people who I really like on there as well. But Elon's sort of destruction of the platform, for want of a better way of describing it, has sort of worried me and disappointed me, really. We had some problems with riots here in the UK recently that were triggered by misinformation. A lot of people said that it was on X. It was more on Telegram and Facebook, I believe. And a lot of right-wing people, Neanderthals, came out dragging their knuckles along the ground and did some really stupid things. And Elon didn't help by kind of saying, I think he posted something along the lines of civil war is inevitable, which is not helpful. And then he had a go at our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Now, whether you like or loathe Keir Starmer, it doesn't matter. Elon Musk, anybody in his position, shouldn't be posting things about a foreign Prime Minister, particularly when Elon Musk said that Keir Starmer was going to introduce detention camps or something like that, which was, of course, utter nonsense, and I think he deleted the post later, but not before several tens of millions of people had read it. And it was this kind of thing that really, I thought, I can't support this. So I was paying for a cheap version of the X Premium at the time.
Michael,
hang on. And travel news came on, and I've cancelled that, and I've kind of gone off Twitter, X, but I haven't deleted my profile as a lot of people have, because I live in the hope that I would want to go back, and I do really miss the people that I was engaging with on there. I feel a bit disappointed that I've sort of going to be losing contact with those people, but I sort of feel morally obliged to get off X for now. So yeah, a bit disappointed there, really. Oh, some ponies. Oh, is he coming out on the road? It's their road. I'm just visiting. There we go. So the Facebook gone years ago. X for now gone. So where does that leave me? Well, a lot of people, of course, have migrated to Threads. And I've seen all sorts of posts on Threads by people saying that it's a lovely place and it's all warm and fluffy and the grass is very much greener and the sun always shines. But I have to be honest and say that it was perhaps like that to start off with. I was on it right from the start and it was fine. It was okay. It was very pleasant on there. But as I say, I hadn't really had any problems on X, so I didn't really notice a massive amount of difference. However, I have recently, and partly I have to say it's probably my own fault, but I tend to post positive things about my electric car. I like it, but I try not to be controversial, and I don't have a go at people. If they drive a nice car, that's their choice. It's none of my business really. And I've had 2 bad experiences on Threads in about as many weeks. And I think, in honest, what's happened is that they've probably had those kinds of weird interactions with people who have EVs, and I got kind of the tongue lashing, the mire, they're sort of venting their spleens in my general direction when I didn't really deserve it. But it's not very nice. It is sort of bullying, really. It's kind of, especially when I haven't been that nasty to them, and to them to be abusive and hurl names at me back is very childish and, based in the playground, all that kind of stuff. But it did also upset me a little bit, because you feel a bit isolated, and I haven't got anybody to talk to about this kind of stuff. So it's hard. My wife doesn't do social media, never has, and I kind of envy her a little bit about that. So she wouldn't understand. I can't talk to her about it, and she would probably say that I asked for it as well. So I decided that I would get off Threads. In fact, it's upset me so much, that sort of interaction on Threads, that I have deactivated my account, and I think it is very unlikely that I will go back to Threads. But I think if you are on Threads, if you use the block option on there, and there are some tools on there to kind of limit your exposure to these knuckle dragging Neanderthals, you can be okay, but you have to make sure you do no interaction. I think what had happened is I'd had a little interaction briefly with a Neanderthal, and then the algorithm on Threads picked up on that and then threw lots of Neanderthals at me and lots of abuse, and then it died down for a couple of weeks, and then I got a load more, and I think, it's a vicious circle then, and I think there's no escape from it at that point. Oh, hello, some horses running. Oh, look at them go. Whee. Oh, that's good. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm partly to blame, probably, but I didn't deserve what I got on Threads, but there we are. So Threads is gone. Another one bites the dust. And where do I go from there, frankly? Well, Mastodon, I do have a little bit of engagement, actually, on Mastodon, but not a huge amount, and it tends to be a lot based in the US, in the USA. Now, I do have interests in the US. I'm interested in US politics, for example, but I can pick up on what's going on there on various podcasts that I listen to, so that's okay. I can tick that box there. But so Mastodon, I'm okay if I don't go on it. Blue Sky, I get very little traction on there, so again, if I don't use it, I won't really notice. And Hive and Tribel get no engagement on there at all, so I'm again not worried about that. So all of those platforms I'm quite happy to just kind of not use.
If you're enjoying this content, make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell, and you'll know when the next video goes live. And if you're in the UK and you want to get £50 off your energy bill, you can sign up for Octopus Energy using the referral link on screen now. I'll get £50 too.
Really, the only one that's left for me that I have been using is Instagram, which I've been on for years, and I've actually never had any problems on Instagram. And I'll tell you why I've never had any problems on Instagram. It's because on there, I only post pictures of my dog. And because I only post pictures of my dog, I have loads of followers on there, because I only have one dog now. I used to have 2. But much more photogenic than I am, much more interesting than I am. So why on earth would anybody want to associate with me on any of the other social media platforms where I'm a whinging, moany EV driver, frankly? So yes, on Instagram I actually have a lovely time. In fact, once I was on holiday with my wife and I in Yorkshire, and we actually arranged to meet up with someone that we had met on Instagram, who's a fellow dog owner, and we went for a walk at a lovely National Trust property and had a very nice time. And I never would have met that person if it hadn't been for social media. So there's me dissing social media massively, but I've had some very nice engagements on there, so I shouldn't really. I should be a bit more positive and not worry too much about all that negative stuff. So Instagram, I think, yeah, it is a platform that I think I will continue to use. But I have decided, mainly because of the problems I had, the hassles I had on Threads, I have decided to have a sort of social media break. But the only one that I think I'm likely to go back to in the short term is Instagram, and then I'm hopeful Elon does one on X so I can go back on there, because I just quite liked it on there, really, much controversial though that may be. The other ones, Threads definitely gone, Facebook I don't think I'll ever go back to that, and the other ones, who cares. But what do you think? I mean, I don't know. Is all this stuff that I'm going on about social media, about people taking photos of their lunch, is it something that we really ought to think? Is life better than this? I mean, what do people talk about when they actually do meet up? Because they probably have nothing to say, because they've seen what they've had for breakfast, let alone anything else that they've been doing for the last however many weeks it might be since you last physically saw somebody. So when my wife goes out and meets a friend, they have loads to talk about because they haven't been looking at each other's lunch on social media. So, she's got the right idea. I could learn a lot from her. I feel so good to be alive. So good to be alive. So one of the problems, of course, with social media is the endless misinformation that is on there. I mentioned the riots earlier on that were here in the UK a few weeks ago, and that was very much fueled by just nonsense online on social media platforms that was just not even close to being true. And people started thinking, I know what I'll do, I know what'll be the good idea to do, I know, go and steal a load of sandwiches and sausage rolls from Greggs, take a load of shoes from Shoe Zone, and then throw a brick at a police officer, because clearly that's what sane people do, isn't it? So it was just all crazy, and many of those people now are locked up in jail, serving time at His Majesty's pleasure. But when it comes to EVs, for some reason, it's really politicised. And I read, I think it was a podcast actually that I listened to not that long ago, and somebody was saying that when the Nissan Leaf first came out, the advertising was very much based around the polar ice caps melting and the kind of green sales message to it. It was purely down to marketing, that's all it was. And ever since then, EVs have been associated with that kind of sort of climate change message. So the right politics, unsurprisingly, have sort of leapt on it and been anti-EV ever since. And it makes a lot of sense when you hear that. You think, oh, okay, I kind of get it now. Because really, an EV is just a car, and it's another method of moving a hunk of metal from A to B. And it shouldn't be so politicised, but sadly it is, and social media kind of fuels that very much. I had some friends recently, and this isn't to do with EVs, but it's renewables, so it's kind of all cast with the same nonsense online. And my friend was saying to me, oh, you've got a heat pump, haven't you? I said, oh yes, I've got a heat pump, yes. And she said, oh, I've heard they don't work when it's really cold. So I said, well, I've been through 2 quite cold winters, and yes, it works absolutely fine. And don't forget, in Norway, 2/3 of the population over there have got heat pumps, and it's flipping freezing over there. So, I was able to kind of put her right. But, she had heard, I don't know whether she got that from social media. I think she probably did. She doesn't read newspapers. I don't think she watches the news, but she spends a lot of time on Facebook. So I think that's probably where she got it from. But that's the problem. People will read this, it will go into the brain. They won't perhaps even remember where they got it from, but it's kind of there. And the problem is, I have, going back to social media, tried to shout at people in a nice way, mostly, when they're wrong and when they're putting this misinformation out. But I kind of don't get anywhere, and I get the abuse back, and it's sort of, and they're not going to change their mind anyway because they think they're right. I'm not going to change my mind because I know I'm right, because of, science, and that's a problem. That's a big problem, because I get all upset, they get upset, and nobody wins. It's just all nonsense, really. So I've kind of thought to myself, as well as getting off social media for a bit and maybe only going back on select platforms where I can just talk about furry animals, that I need to kind of, in these videos, I probably need to not bother with the ranting. My wife recently watched one of my videos. She doesn't watch very many of my videos, and she watched one and she said, "You're ranting again." And I thought, you're right, because I'd introduced this segment in the video just to kind of break the video up, is the main reason I did it. And I just talked about emissions from exhaust pipes being smelly and horrible and poisoning people, and I think I mentioned the heat pump thing. And I shouldn't have, it sounds moany and sort of just not very good. It's just very, very moany, and it doesn't do anything, and it doesn't achieve anything. So what I've decided that I should do in these videos really is to stop the whingy moany stuff, because it doesn't work. I'll instead carry on supporting things like Stop Burning stuff, and let people like Quentin Wilson and Dan Caesar and people who are much better positioned to rally against the misinformation, let them do it, because they're better at it than me, and they've got the resources and the time and the backing to do it. So they should do all that stuff. And instead I should just be what I am, I think, probably most of the time really on this channel, which is just positive, just demonstrate purely by actions what it's like to have a heat pump, to have solar panels, to drive an EV. It's just a positive experience, and I don't need to moan about the moany stuff, just demonstrate the nice stuff. So that's what I am hoping to do in future. It's kind of been a salutary lesson in what I should and shouldn't do, and whinging and moaning is one of the things that I shouldn't do. It's not really me anyway. So yeah, anyway, there we are. That's what I'm going to do. The social media, if I do go back, I'm going to be all sweetness and light, and in these videos I'm going to concentrate on the kind of important stuff, the positive stuff, the things that are hugely aspirational, who are positive energy of. I'm rambling very much now, but you get what I mean.
I'm just feeling myself. I'm just feeling myself. Don't know.
So what do you think about all the kind of stuff that I've spoken about today? I kind of, it's been from the heart a little bit. I've sort of just been talking out the camera, which isn't very interesting, I know. It's much more interesting if I actually had any friends that I could bring along to the videos, rather than me just spouting nonsense. But what do you think? Do you think that I've got this right about social media? Do you think I've got my future plans make more sense? What about the videos? Do you like it when I rant? I don't know. I think maybe I might still do the odd ranty video. I made one where I have to say this actually, although I get quite upset about the comments that I've had on social media, and I find it quite personal and bullying in many respects, when I've had comments to this YouTube channel, I've actually found it really hilarious when people post things, because it is normally such nonsense. And I've actually taken screenshots of those comments off and put them on social media. So me not being on those platforms on social media where I could actually say, oh, look what this person said, is quite disappointing to me, really, because it's quite an outlet for the silly comments that I get when I make an EV video. But well, there we are. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry if this has been even more rambly than normal. I would love to know what you think, so post your comments. Hit like if you have actually enjoyed this, weirdly, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, because there is loads more stuff coming up on the channel when I get around to editing it. So thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.